So is it now recording?
Yes, right there.
Okay. So we're
So then sure.
On any recording item. Is it recording?
well, you know, I have honestly done all of these pieces before, but I've never successfully done them all together.
Well, I'm impressed, and it's recording your face. So.
For now.
For now.
Hopefully now it will not record my face.
I would turn that off if you want.
No, I'm trying to. Cool.
Hey, everybody.
I'm glad there's some scientists here
Around the world trip.
because we're talking about science and it's a harder sell to the humanists. Do you guys believe in evidence and data and stuff like that? No.
Oh, I had to peel my sock off. It hurt so bad.
Thank you for coming, Pam. I was just saying, I'm really glad we have some scientists here because talking about experimentation and data is harder with humanists. They nod and they smile and they say all the right things, but deep down they're thinking this has nothing to do with me. So did you go to Christmas Island?
March.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, spring break.
And how long are you gone for? A week? 10 days?
It ends up being 10 days of travel.
Wow.
Yeah.
And your husband just picks up where you left off, and
Yeah, he's got baby duty.
that's a really good experience for both of them.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, we're all friends here, right?
We're all friends here.
Okay. So my question for you.
Be careful when Greenlaw asks a question.
Yeah. Do you know me that well?
I know you well enough.
Okay. So, Chris, my question is, and you don't have to answer this. I'm just going to ask it.
Okay.
Are you here because you're interested, or are you here because your boss said you should go to this for me?
I'm interested.
Good.
I'm only
So-
here because my boss said it.
Little from home.
Yeah. So I wonder, let's see. No, everybody is not here who said they were coming, though. Jesse got a better offer. He's sick, apparently.
He's downstairs.
He is?
Yep.
What's downstairs?
A meeting of a bunch of people.
Oh, he just emailed me and said he was homesick.
Dun, dun, dun. I thought I saw him there. Maybe I.
Oh, I know who's missing. Don. Our
It's
colleague.
not 10 o'clock yet.
Okay, yeah, good. Fair enough.
I have a couple of tea right
And Keith said he was coming,
Mhm.
and then last night he said, but I might not be there at 10 o'clock. So anyway. So did you guys have reasonable breaks? Not all of us traveled like Anand. Where'd you go,
It
Anand?
was awesome. Dubai, Nepal, and India.
So
3.5
was
weeks.
this work or fun
All
or
fun. Family.
Really?
Family, yeah. All
you
six
have
of us
family
went.
in Dubai?
No, not Dubai. Not family in Dubai.
What
But
was in
we-
Dubai?
Well, the rationalization was that we were flying through Dubai, and I said, well, we should stay a couple of days to acclimate to the jet lag. So we should hang out in Dubai for a couple of days. So
Was this?
it was fun.
This was
That
all
totally
out of your
fun.
merit pay?
Yeah. For the next 50 years. Yeah.
But you
We
know,
did the indoor skiing in
we
Dubai.
can't take it with us.
No.
But that's just wrong. That's like asparagus in December. It just does. It's
No,
wrong.
that's just like asparagus too.
Well, me too. I love asparagus, but it's kind of like winter tomatoes. They're not the same as when they're in season. So are you teaching anything new, by the way?
Well, by default, yes.
Well, what? Everything is new?
First year, but-
Oh well. Well, it is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. I mean, you were here some of last year.
Well, but
So my question is, are you teaching any courses that you haven't taught here?
yes. both of them.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good. Good. Yeah. You know, in grad school, my third year, the department chair said, we would like, I want you to teach either environmental economics or urban economics. And I said, but sir, I haven't taken a course in either of them. And he said, well, you've had microeconomics, right? Which is, of course, and I said, yes. Well, he said, well, they're just applied micro. You'll do fine, And so I went for the environmental economics, and that ended up getting me the job here, ironically. So then my first year here, they said, you're going to teach American economic history and urban economics. And I said, great. Just so you know, I've never had a course in either of them. They said, that's okay. That's what we have to do here, So. Well, in 15 seconds we will start. We'll give Keith 15 seconds. How long are you supposed to give the dean? An hour?
About an hour.
Okay, yeah.
That
should be about right.
I remember being told that your students in class, and you give 5 minutes for an instructor, 10 minutes for assistant, 15 minutes for associate.
Right, yes.
So a dean, you give an hour.
Yeah, nice. We will tell him that. I know all of you, but you may not know all of you. So, Anna, why don't you start?
Hi, I know faces, but I don't know that I know everybody as well. My name is Anand Rao, Professor of Communication. I work with the Speaking Center, the Speaking Intensive Program, and this year also with the QEP First Year Seminar Program. Good to see you all.
I'm Nigel Harstead. I am the online learning specialist in the Division of Teaching and Learning Technologies, and I also teach a course in organization for the communication program.
What? You work in DTLT and you teach?
I teach at night.
What it doesn't matter. It's still teaching.
He says very strategic.
No. and wait a minute. You have a PhD as well, don't you?
Yes.
Shocking. It's almost like you're one of us. Wait a minute. You are one of us.
Is this when you turn out and say we are recording everything that is being
Oh,
said?
yes. Sorry. We are recording.
If you want to brag about my degree.
Yeah, Oh, and one more little known story about Nigel. He's come a long way in his life. He's from North Dakota.
There were more cows than people in the hometown. A little known fact, so you both thoroughly know.
Yep. Chris
Garcia, I'm a professor in the College of Business and I'm also serving as the interim associate dean for faculty.
Pamela Groth, I'm assistant professor in Earth and Environmental Sciences, and I'm their resident climate change expert.
and
And
where are you from? Where'd you do your undergraduate work?
yeah. So I'm from here. I did my undergraduate here. Yes.
She was my student. I remember that. Just like Ken was my student. Chris, for the record. Yeah, so, Randy?
I'm Randy Reeve. I'm an assistant professor in chemistry. What's my fun factoid question you want to ask? Beyond that, come on, everyone else have one. Something fun.
Don't look at me. Where are you from, originally?
Where am I from? Well, I was just in Maryland. It's real far away, guys.
Nothing's wrong with Maryland. They have nice crabs.
They have great crabs.
Yeah.
And football, apparently.
Yeah.
Bob Rycroft, professor of economics from Western New York.
Is there a football team out there? and they did well. They did fine.
Whether there is or not.
I'm April Wynn, and I'm in the biology department, and I'll keep the theme going. I'm from Texas, and Cowboys are the America's team. So.
Oh, gosh, there is something I don't like about you.
I know.
Where Texas? Where in Texas?
So born in Lubbock, but grew up mostly in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Okay. I like to visit Texas.
It's a great place. It's a big place. You can visit lots of different parts of the state.
I was in Austin not long ago, which is a wonderful place, and I was sitting in this restaurant and across the street from the school.
Mm-hmm.
And the restaurant was unable to get an alcohol license because they were within 1,000 feet of the school.
Oh.
However, you could carry firearms into the school. That was okay, but not alcohol. And if you don't know our science faculty here, I was very impressed when each of them started because they jumped right into Mary Washington and they did crazy things like came to workshops and got outside their department, and that was all good stuff. So keep up the good work. Don?
My name is Don Lee. I'm an assistant professor at economics. And in terms of where I'm from, I'm originally from South Korea. Yeah,
good. Jeremy, good timing.
Yeah, Jeremy Larochelle in Spanish, and from an exotic place called Falls Church, Virginia. Not too interesting.
Were you a Jaguar?
Not as much like Texas.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Bishop O'Connell High School.
Okay. BI, I've heard of it.
And
good timing. Oh my gosh.
I'll make it in.
Yeah. We're doing introductions and we finished everyone except for the newcomers. So Mary, you want to?
Mary Taylor, Director of Center Teaching Excellence and Innovation. Dover Schlief, Professor of Sociology and
Institutional Provost Office.
You're not the secretary is from the provost's office. Come on. Okay. I made a referral to you yesterday, by the way. I made a comment about it would be good for you to know about student-faculty ratios. And this member of our community said, well, where would I find out about that? I said, I bet Deborah could help you with that. So
I think it's on our website.
a lot of things are.
I mean, the institutional analysis is part of the website.
Okay. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. Today, I want to very briefly touch on learning science, which I find absolutely fascinating. And you missed my disparaging comments about the humanists,
Okay.
but you won't probably find them disparaging.
Probably not.
No, I just said I was glad the scientists were here because we were going to talk about data and evidence and stuff like that. And I thought that some of the humanists might think that it didn't have anything to do with them, but I don't believe that's true. Okay, so my unambitious title is How to Help Students Work Less but Learn More. And I really believe that. And it's a hard sell because students have many years of socialization and how learning doesn't really work. I mean, they think it does, but it doesn't. Okay, when I started digging into this topic about what I was gonna say today, I realized that I could spend a whole semester talking about this stuff. Well, maybe I couldn't, but people could. It's a whole field, and it's really exciting. It's exciting because it's a relatively new field. But anyway, so what I'm going to talk about today has two audiences. Some of it is addressed to students, how students can study more effectively, how they can learn more, maybe even with less time. So these are the kinds of things that I tell my advisees when I give a very different version of this talk. And the other audience is how teachers can help students learn more effectively, which is about course design kinds of issues, okay? I have some takeaways. Remind me, if we run out of time, remind me to give you the takeaways. All right, let's see if this works. Well, it doesn't work anymore, okay? Wow, it really doesn't work anymore. Nigel?
Does that mean we're done?
There we go. Okay. All right. So the claim I want to make to begin is that most of our incoming students don't know how to study effectively. Agree? Disagree? Are you okay with that?
I agree.
Okay. Sure, it depends. Okay. You know, the MBA students that I teach are better than the 18-year-old freshman. I'll grant you that. Okay, we're going to talk about the MBA students too. All right. So Ulrich Boser from the Center for Economic Progress says the ability to learn effectively might be the most important skill in life. It's kind of like the anti-kryptonite. Okay, if nothing else, if we teach our students nothing else, we should teach them how to learn effectively, especially in this day and age when, you know, lifelong learning is kind of the norm. Bob, were you going to interject something? You look like you were thinking there. I know. All right. My goal for today, all right, very modest. My goal for today, gosh, how close do I have to be, is to persuade you that incorporating findings from learning science into your teaching, it was
Gonna keep you on your toes.
yeah, I guess it is. He was talking about things at the assignment level. Okay, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, but mostly I'm gonna talk at a broader brush level. Now, how do we do that? A 5? Okay. So, how am I going to assess how well this goes today? Well, simply, I'm not going to be able to assess it today. I want to be able to count how many of you go back this year and do one thing, change your classes in one way that comes from learning science. Either what we talk about today or maybe some further research that you do. Okay, so again, low bar, but okay. Michael Feldstein is a very prominent writer in ed tech, and he says there's very little sense among the professoriate that teaching is a discipline that advances, and which as practitioners, we should also be scholars. Academics often view teaching as an art, especially experienced academics. Now, I may be dating myself here. I'm fairly certain that everybody except, no, how do I make this a positive? Maybe Bob, I suspect Bob is in the same boat as me, but the rest of you not, okay? How many of you in your graduate programs were taught how to teach? Awesome, I'm impressed. Times have changed, not you, Anna?
Not really, no.
Okay, my instruction as a TA in graduate school was a 90-minute session on how to turn in grades and where to pick up my paycheck, and that was pretty much it. And the rest
Better than I got.
Okay, well, yes, okay. That makes me feel a lot better, okay?
Well, I will also say that even though I had a training session, I could have always used more than what I actually got, which was not bad.
Right.
But I mean, and also what this suggests is that even if I was trained in 1994, that's not enough to sustain me for the rest of my career.
Yes, a huge amount of research, a huge amount of findings about how people learn has been discovered just in the last couple decades. And I think most faculty are largely unaware of those things. And that's a shame because, I don't know about you guys, but most of what I spend my time on is teaching. You know.
I also think, excuse me, that you have to think about who your students are, and our students don't stay the same. And so we need to figure out who they are and how to meet their needs, because they come with a vastly different set of skills and needs every few years.
Yeah.
And this is one of those years.
Yep, pretty much.
So I got introduced to learning science in 2005 when the school sent me to a conference. I didn't know about the conference. I just had an administrator call me up and say, you should go to this conference and I'll pay for it. And it was right after this really cool book called How People Learn was published by the National Academy of Sciences. It's on my list of references that are at the end here. And it was just really interesting stuff. It was stuff that some of it was intuitive, but a lot of it was like, wow, I didn't ever realize that, you know? So ever since then, I've been reading and paying attention and going to conference sessions and stuff like that. And I still don't feel like I'm an expert in any sense of the word. I think all I know is some of the questions that I should be asking. But, you know, you got to start somewhere. All right. So I thought, let's talk to one of the experts, okay? This is Marcia Lovett. She is at Carnegie Mellon, which was a great source of information for me. And she has a nice little video here. And there's no audio. Nigel, any?
I
Is
guess.
it volume up on the
Your,
bottom right of the screen?
The Carnegie Mellon University's Interdisciplinary
Thank you, guys.
Center for
It takes a
the
village.
Development and Application of Learning Sciences.
So science is about uncovering truth, but really what it's about is it's about building models that we can use to understand at a good approximation of the truth. So when you talk about a science of learning, what I see the value in the process is doing is getting a good model for how learning works.
I think, scientists is about often unpacking the simple, right? You watch that apple fall, like what can be simpler than that, right? But then it's always mathematics about gravity around how it's falling, right? Like if you slow it down, it's going slower in the first half than the second half, right? And you only notice those things if you slow it down in some sense and study it, or have a microscope or a telescope, right? So part of doing science and education is finding ways to see the unseen and make inferences about what's going on underneath the surface, in this case, this surface, right? What's going on in the mind.
We can develop these models by studying students' learning in natural and artificially created situations, manipulate those situations, and collect data on how their learning goes. Does it go better in this situation than that situation? And ideally, if we had some model before we did that investigation, we had a prediction going in and an explanation underlying that prediction, because we have a sort of a model in our minds about how the learning should unfold, and at the end it should go like this, and we can look at the data and say, did learning go the way we thought? Did the end result look like our prediction? Did the process unfold the way we thought? And then with those data and that comparison process between the data and the model, we refine and revise our model and make it closer and closer to the truth.
Sometimes what we don't recognize is that there may be certain hidden prerequisites or hidden skills. So, we did A and B, and after all, this new topic is just combining A and B, right? So I did everything I should. Why am I having so much trouble on putting it together? And when we've seen in many instances that there's often a sort of hidden seed. If you find that, then you can design a new set of activities that addresses that seed.
Well, I think this idea of having a model of the learner is central to good teaching. You kind of want to simulate in your mind, if I do this and they do that and I respond like this, how is that going to support their learning? Through the experiences, these sort of pseudo-experiments that one does as a teacher. I mean, I think people don't realize that teaching involves so many micro decisions, moment-to-moment decisions. How should I respond? Should I respond to that student's question? Should I let them, try a little bit further? But my point is to say all the way to, what decision do I make about creating the learning environment in which they're trying to learn. But all of those are little experiments, and the teacher, by observing the data, what the student does in response, is kind of refining his or her model of the students. So I think that's a real commonality between learning science and what a teacher does. What learning science can do that might be difficult in the context of teaching is do that work and look at the commonalities that arise across contexts, or look and see, does learning work a certain way in this context with this kind of student, and that way in another context with another kind of student. So I think a teacher usually has a sort of a circumscribed scope of contexts in terms of the students, the nature of the topics and so forth. And so their experience, the data collection is a more circumscribed set.
All right. So what she says and what other...
What can learning science tell us about the role and value of educational...
That's not what we want to listen to. Learning scientists say that many teachers think about what they're doing and think about how their students are learning. The difference is that learning science takes it a step further and sort of formalizes models, formalizes data collection, formalizes assessment and things like that. I'm not proposing that we all go out and become learning scientists because that's not our job. But I think we can learn from what they've discovered and we can use that to improve our teaching and our students' learning. All right, back. All right. See if we're live again.
Already did that. Now just move forward.
What's that?
You did that step. Now you just need to move forward.
Okay, got it. So what'd you think of the video? Interesting, boring, waste of time. Good because I didn't have to listen to Steve talk anymore.
Well, it was very interesting. I want to see it in practice.
Okay, good. All right. So the next video is just a short piece. How can learning science improve teaching? And it's Marcia again. I think she's a pretty good speaker, so we will stick with her.
How can the scientific study of learning be relevant and helpful to educators in their day-to-day classroom activities? We asked researchers affiliated with Carnegie Mellon's Simon Initiative for their personal and disciplinary perspectives.
Anyone who's an expert at what they do does things in response to the situation, in response to the environment, based on their accumulated knowledge. And they might make a lot of teaching moves automatically. An expert teacher may not think of it as collecting data and making a choice. They might just do things that seem like the most natural thing to do in the situation. That expert view is sort of hiding a lot of tacit knowledge that the teacher has about what might work, what might not work, background knowledge about the student, this context, and so forth. And so one way to think about it is that the teacher is making a lot of moves and it feels like art, and maybe a lot of it is sort of implicit, it's not explicit in their thinking, and maybe some of it is even very finely tuned to the contextual factors. So it seems like an art, but one way of thinking of the science is that it's sort of just trying to unpack all that and study it systematically so that we can see, is there something we can generalize from this other than when this teacher with this student in this context did that, it worked well.
All right. Let's get back to our talking heads. All right. Can you tell when your students are learning? Do you see light bulbs go off? Ever? Always? One of the things that I found interesting, learning scientists have discovered that there's this thing called the expert blind spot, which is pretty scary, actually, to me. Expert intuition about what's easy and what's hard to students is often biased, okay? What they found is the higher the level of the teaching, the further away the teacher is from the student's perception of things. And so they've done experiments, like this was an experiment where they looked at particular math problems and they said, you know, which of these problems is the student, or your student's going to find hardest? And they systematically got it backwards. You know, so all I'm saying is be sensitive to, you might not be getting the whole picture. And so, you know, learning scientists argue that this is why we need actual data.
So this isn't, at first I was reading this as the teacher is trying to read the students to determine what they find difficult.
Yes.
But no, but it sounded like the way you were describing this was teachers looking at problems and figuring out which ones are going to be difficult.
Yes, it's the latter.
Okay.
And then
so
they
it's not looking at the students, because at first I was thinking there was an explanation that
well,
as
they're
students
saying
progress, they learn to mask.
well, they're asking what kinds of problems will students find difficult.
Right.
So it's looking at the problem and not the student.
Right.
Got it.
Yes. And what's interesting to me is they got it completely backwards. The rank ordering was completely reversed. Okay. Okay. So all right.
Why is that?
Because it's kind of like when you're an expert, you've learned so much that just seems intuitive to you that you don't think it's necessary to teach that stuff anymore. It just comes naturally to you. Okay, we're going to come back to that issue of novice versus expert. Okay, I wanted to say, here are the things that we're going to talk about, assuming that we have the time. Here are the big takeaways from learning science, okay? Learning by doing, regular feedback, novice versus expert learning, metacognition, and motivation. These are all, and I will give you the slide here. I mean, not the slide, I'll give you the PowerPoint, so you don't need to write stuff down in the odd event that you actually writing stuff down. So that's fine. Okay, so number one, students learn by doing, okay? Herb Simon, Nobel laureate from Carnegie Mellon. Bob and I count him as an economist. He was an economist, and then he kind of got into artificial intelligence and stuff like that. What he said was, learning results from what the student does and thinks, and only from what the student does and thinks. Okay. The first teaching insight that I got as a young faculty at a workshop was a senior faculty member said, it's not what you do that matters. It's what they get from it, you know? It's not what you know, that's why covering the content, quote unquote, is just absolutely wrong. Because, anyway, I think you get my point. Simon goes on and he says, the teacher can advance learning only by influencing what the student does to learn. Okay? It's not teaching that causes learning. That's kind of a scary thought. Attempts by the learner to perform cause learning, dependent upon the quality of feedback and opportunities to use it. Okay? So what do students do in your classes? What do you have students do in your classes to help them learn? Anna, that should be easy.
Yeah, they discuss,
you know,
they speak.
We wouldn't think that you would learn how to write without writing, and we wouldn't think that you learn how to speak without speaking. But somehow we often think that you learn how to do economics without actually doing it. You know, it seems like it's easier to think about doing in skill-based courses than in content-based courses. But if we have the time, there are ways that you can get the same effect in you know, History 101 or something like that.
But isn't that a product of thinking of certain courses as content-based when they should really be thought of as skill-based?
Yes, but that, I mean, one can argue that all courses should be skill-based.
Right. Yeah.
But we tend...
Like economics is a great example.
Yeah, I know.
It's like, I loved econ as an undergrad. Yeah. It wasn't content. It's more about a process.
Right. Okay, but every discipline probably is about, you know, the big, I was surprised when I learned this. I mean, I'm often surprised because I'm often learning things. But students think that the difference between biology and history, no, biology and Spanish is the subject matter. They think that's the difference in the fields.
True.
And it's far more than that. I mean, it is the subject matter, but it's really the approach that practitioners do. Okay.
And I think if you often talk to students about what counts as rigor, students will 99% of the time identify courses where it's content coverage as being more rigorous than courses that do skill-based and do the work of doing.
Okay. And maybe that's because they're harder for the students to do well in because they're not being taught in a creative enough way. Maybe. You missed the introductions.
Am I late?
No. No, you're 30 minutes early according to
30 minutes early.
Yes. Okay.
Is mathematics a skill or a content-based discipline?
Wait, hit me with that again.
Those who teach mathematics, are they delivering content or teaching skills?
Both.
What are you, an administrator or a politician? Okay. The first takeaway was that learning comes from doing. Okay. I mean, it's not rocket science, but the idea is it's only when students do stuff that they learn deeply. It's not what you do as the teacher, it's what the student does. Okay.
Yeah, I would like to just kind of piggyback on that. I think the students are in that position of doing the constructing their own knowledge.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
They're actively constructing that versus receiving it. And I think that's the deeper
Mm-hmm. Okay, and we will talk about that in hour 3. Okay. No, don't no, absolutely. Okay. Yeah. That's why I wasn't worried about you being late. Okay. Second big takeaway, regular practice with low stakes assessment and prompt feedback are keys to learning. Okay. There are 3 equally important parts there. Okay. And in various courses, I break down in each of those. Probably all of us at some point have failed on number 3, prompt feedback. I'm just guessing. Okay. When I was a new faculty member, my approach to teaching was kind of what I had learned. I told students, for next class, read chapter X. Okay. And I did that every day. And then I lectured to my students. And then I gave them a midterm and a final exam. And, you know, the midterm was like worth 40% and the final was worth like 50%. Okay. Regular practice? No. Low stakes assessment? No. Prompt feedback? Not on the final, you know. But more and more I've gravitated towards this kind of an approach. Okay. And just by the way, this is where technology can be helpful at times in terms of automating processes and stuff. And you can do that in lots of different ways. Okay. Now, I'm not going to show you a bunch of videos. I'm just going to click on the link because it's a YouTube page. Dr. Steven Chu, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He is a cognitive psychologist at Samford University in Alabama. He was the Carnegie Foundation's Alabama Professor of the Year a few years ago. He has created a collection of videos that are addressed to students how to learn better. Okay, so if you just click on this link, this is his page, and you can just start and scroll down. And they are addressed to students rather than us, but I certainly learned a lot from watching.
Yeah, I will second. I've used some of these in my 12F stuff. There's some pretty good stuff in there if you dig around. There's some really cool stuff.
Good. Wow. Seconded by the dean.
Switch.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't really want that. Yep.
No, it's on record.
Here's one for you, Keith. I had a math slide, which of course, anyway, I did. This one. The expert's blind spot. We'll talk. All right, slideshow. Presenter view. And we're on. Okay. Let me just shoot forward here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's going to be a quiz afterwards, Keith, for you. So, okay. One of the things that Chu says and other learning scientists have talked about is that students have very strong beliefs about learning, and that affects how they study. And unfortunately, most of these beliefs are not true. It's kind of scary. I mean, it's ridiculously scary, actually. I try to think back to if I was like this, and I don't remember, sorry. Okay, being good at a subject is more a matter of inborn talent than hard work. Keith, I'm just not a math person. I don't have that gene, okay? So it's not a question of working at it. You're stuck, okay? That's number one. Number two, learning is fast, okay? If you're smart, you learn quickly, okay? Or as Chu says, new college students tend to grossly underestimate how much time an assignment will take. One of the things that I mentioned to my FSEM students is, why do we assign the term paper on the first day of class? And they go, I don't know. It's like, well, it's because we expect it to take the whole term, It's like, it never occurred to them that. Okay, and number three, learning is composed of memorizing a bunch of unrelated facts. We'll come back to that one shortly. And number four, multitasking enhances learning. Okay. Now, my students, because I had this conversation with them this fall, my FSEM students, and this is an honors FSEM, they know what the right answer is. So they all fully said, oh yeah, multitasking is bad. Okay. However, the way they study while watching a video, a fun video, and doing social media all at the same time. I think that's a good example of where if you focused on your learning, you might be able to accomplish it in less time, or at least, yeah, anyway.
I think that's really an interesting point for us as instructors, though, is that we are constantly competing with a flood of more interesting information. So, how can we be as engaging as that YouTube video or that Snapchat?
Right. So the judo lesson here is, if we can get students to have correct beliefs about how learning happens, that will play to our advantage. Once it's a tough sell, but if we could do that, then things would work better. And I suspect that better students pick up on this stuff quicker. But what learning scientists believe, and what I believe, is that virtually every student can learn a lot, can at least get B-level work, learn at that level. And I don't think we generally in academia believe that. I mean, some people believe, well, anyway, I'm not going to go there. Okay, so novice versus expert learners. Novices see a discipline as a bunch of random concepts, okay? When novices see a new concept, they tend to memorize it. Memorizing isn't bad per se, but they just throw it into the basket, right? How do experts see a field? Chemistry?
To me, it's kind of like a web of all these interconnecting points, all these connecting concepts.
There's a framework, right? A schema. We understand that as disciplinary experts. Every discipline has a framework. So when we come across a new fact, quote, quote, what do we do with that fact? We don't just throw it in the basket. What do we do?
You integrate it into your schema.
We say, where does that go in the schema? That's why we learn quicker and we learn deeper, because we have a framework for embedding that knowledge. Now, of course, we want to build our own interpretation of that framework, okay? But, you know, first semester freshmen don't have any framework to work with, at least when they come into our economics courses. Okay, and that's a huge advantage that and that's one of those things we don't think about.
You just said that, it just reminded me, like, not only do they not have a framework for economics, they don't have a framework for history.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I
it's
wasn't
like-
going to
it's
pick on
like-
history
no,
again.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
like, they're expected to know multiple frameworks
Yeah.
when they walk in the door. And what a disservice that is in some ways.
Do we expect that our students will know how to learn as freshmen when they come in? Do we act that way? I think we do, by and large.
Yeah. This is why the freshmen, you often hear a first-year student talk about, oh, I can't believe that that I learned in econ is connected to something that I learned in English literature, and I can't believe there are
These are good moments,
right? And that's a great moment of insight for them. I think the one caveat I would add to this, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, is that having that framework, though, can be disadvantageous as well, because we assume everything fits within that framework.
Right.
And sometimes we need to be able to develop a new framework or a new perspective on it. So expert
That's
learner,
junior level
yes,
work.
I would say more like moderate, level, the intermediate level learner, because really, I would think the expert learner would be the one that can say, yeah, there's a framework. Let's look at this from a totally different perspective and figure out a different framework. Right? Not that we're expecting undergraduates to do that, but that's what I think we would want them to eventually.
All right. Okay. Metacognition is the key element in effective learning. All right. What's metacognition mean?
Thinking about thinking.
Huh?
Thinking about thinking.
Yeah, thinking about thinking, or in this context, thinking about your learning. Okay, thinking about your learning. Have you ever had, and we'll ask the assistant professors here, since you have a less experience than the rest of us. Have you ever had students who took a midterm and were confident they did well, and then were shocked to discover that they did poorly? Okay.
On my midterms, I asked them what grade do they expect, and it's at least 50% that say they got higher than what they did. It's
And ironically, the literature on that says the better the student, the closer their guess. So as you get better at, well, not sure what cause and effect is there, but that's so interesting to me. Okay, these are the students that have poor metacognition, and there are lots and lots of them as freshmen. Okay, I had this conversation with my freshman son over Christmas.
I remember seeing a survey that asked people if they thought they were above average drivers, and about
Aren't we all?
80% thought they were. Right? They're not, obviously.
Yeah.
We're not self-reflective.
What was the result of the study again? That people tended to guess that their grades were higher than what they
Correct.
actually were.
Yes.
And the better they did in the course,
The closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Pam, you were saying
Because they're all-
that your experience was the opposite of that?
No, that's
That's what they were.
that's exactly what I found in my large introductory course. Exactly what I
What was
found.
the gap? Did you look to see, were they a whole letter grade higher, or did you do any of that analysis?
I didn't look at it that closely.
Very interesting.
Because for presentations, I did the same thing, and they're almost always at weights. I think they did better. Except for the ones that rocket, and then they always say they did 5 points lower.
Right. But that's the other side too. You see that
Right.
some of the students who maybe aren't so cocky, but they really know the material. And those are the ones who really know a lot tend to underestimate because they have higher expectations.
Well, that's part of the motivation.
And then happens too.
They have a different
They
motivation.
see that it's always
see
going
how
to
it's not
improve, and they might actually be better.
If they're thinking, I'm not going to perform at that level, they're more likely to work harder to try eventually perform at that level.
But with your metacognition piece here, I think it's important for first-year students to realize that a lot of them have to come and deconstruct scaffolds of how they've been taught to learn or how they've learned to learn that don't work here.
That's right.
Because I know people that have come and said, I didn't have to study in school, or I studied by reading 20 minutes before the exam and then I did fine. So they have to deconstruct all of that and then reconstruct it.
But
So
first
they have
to discover that the old doesn't work. You know.
Then they have to go through that mourning period. And that takes a long time. So if you only have a midterm and a final, they're still figuring out how to mourn that deconstruction. They haven't had time to build it. It takes longer.
Really, because in Virginia, we're like one of the highest ranking for standardized testing in the state. And so students are very much culturally conditioned to learn in a particular way and to produce, and they feel very sick. They know how to play the game, right? And then when they come to higher education, all of a sudden it's like, oh, we want you to be critical thinkers, we want you to create all of these kinds of skills that they don't have practice in. And that shifting that takes place from being, learner-centered, it is that sense of mourning and loss. And so part of our job, I think, is how do we support that transition to help them understand that there's a change and a difference. I use a chapter out of Fried. It's called The Game of School, and it talks about the different categories of students. So there's the cherry pickers who basically find out what the professor wants and they give them. There's true blue learners. So there's these categories, and my students actually go through and look at that, and they talk.
You mean they're
about how
playing
they
us?
play the game of school, and it's a nice way to talk about that and kind of demystify, how they play, right? Yeah.
There's another element too, which is scary to me, at least. There's been a lot of research done starting in physics that shows that students can be very high performers without really understanding the underlying concepts. They know how to plug the formula in and they know how to crank out the answer. But if you ask them, what does it mean? They're stuck. And the ultimate currency in school is grades. Right? So if you're getting good grades and you're not learning anything, it doesn't matter in a sense. So that's another thing that we have to worry about. I mean, our jobs are easy. We work 12 hours a week or something. Okay.
Just drop that.
Before your time, the General Assembly did a study. First they decided that college faculty in Virginia were overpaid because we were only working 12 hours a week. And so we were, really generously paid for 12 hours a week. So.
How'd they compute that? From the
contact hours? Yeah, right.
I see.
Everything, you just come in knowing. Anyway, oh, by the way, this is the best book that I know on learning science. If you read Jim Lang's book, as I did, all through the book he refers to this one. So anyway.
I have a copy of it.
Yeah. Okay. I have an exercise for us to do, but it requires writing.
Not much.
Not much. I mean, yeah. So does everybody have something to write with? No, it does not. Typing is fine. Typing is fine. 5 minutes or less. Yeah. Okay. All right. This works better in a large group, but you don't want to play? It's okay. It's fine. Okay. So everybody on that side of the table, you're going to be group A. Everybody on this side of the table gets to be group B, all right? And I'm not playing, okay? I'm gonna give you 90 seconds to learn a bunch of words, 24 words, okay? Group A, your trick is, think about, does the word contain the letters E or G? That's your trick, okay? Group B, that's us, is the word pleasant? Does it have a pleasant connotation to you?
Well, when you say our trick, does that mean we just have to memorize the words?
No, think about that as a way of helping you memorize the words.
Can we write the words down?
No, not yet. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you the words. You have 90 seconds to look, and then I'm going to ask you to write down the ones that you remember. Okay? Ready? Evening, country, salt, easy, peace, morning, pretty, expensive, poor, doctor, city, dry, cold, love, bargain, war, hate, wet, rich, nurse, pepper, hard, ugly, hot. Okay, 30 more seconds. Okay, now write down the words that you can remember. When you get done, look up so I can tell. And I'm told the winner gets merit pay next year from the dean.
She told us that first.
Okay, everybody done? You still working? Jeremy, you done? Okay, all right, now the kinesthetic part of the learning. Everybody stand up. Did everybody, how many of you got 3 words? If you got 3 words, you can remain standing. Okay.
Can we see the list again?
Right, my bad. Yes, you're right. Sorry. Okay. Okay.
Yes. Oh.
Okay. So count the number of words you got right.
Okay.
If you got at least 3 words, you can keep standing.
Does it matter if we have to reform the one?
That's not the same word.
I know.
If you got 6 words, remain standing. If you got 9 words, remain standing. If you got 12 words, remain standing. Bob, are you standing?
Yes.
Wow. If you got 13 words, remain standing.
Ooh, that was the one.
14 words. Darn. 15 words.
Oh, 2.
What do you guys practice this at home? 16 words.
Yeah. Oh, I'm still standing.
17. Okay.
She said, I'm bad at this.
Yeah, I know. Okay. So our experiment failed, probably because we're not average Americans. When you do this with a large group, the group B wins. Okay. The reason why.
You're
What's
at a
that?
meeting?
Is there any meaning to it?
The group A, you guys, were instructed to do what psychologists call shallow processing. Remembering letters is pretty trivial.
Yep, it really
Okay.
is.
What group B was instructed to do is called deep processing. Okay, it's supposed to make a deeper connection. Okay, you guys just have good memories, I guess.
I wonder if you read.
How?
I instinctually cheat. You can see the trend in them.
Well, so that's the point, right? What if
so
you?
Like, I was looking at the E's and the G's, right? And I'm going through like, wait a minute, E's is on the left, R's on the right.
So what if you had a third group that looked at information, figured that out?
It's like
A third group, you don't tell them what to do.
So admittedly, I
don't
cheated
tell them,
instinctual on an instinctual level. I just got it. So yeah, of course, I can do a lot. Like, I'm annoyed about bargaining because I put bargaining instead of bargaining when that's something.
So think about how our students learn what we lecture them on. You know, that could be a little scary. Okay.
Trying to figure out how.
Did I fail, Tim?
No, I
Okay. Okay. No, it's fine. Thanks for coming. Okay. And this is all recorded, by the way. So, all right. So shallow processing, deep processing. If you give your students a reading assignment, read chapter 6, okay? Is that shallow processing or deep processing?
No processing.
They just,
They may not even.
What's
read it,
their,
or they
but
may
suppose
read
they
it.
do, what's the goal for many of them? Get to the end.
To be able to save face in the classroom.
Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, same thing about watch a video. Watch a video before class. I always thought that was cool, you know? It's the video generation, they'll like that. Not necessarily. Okay, so what learning science tells us is, as teachers, we need to offer orienting tasks. Okay, we need to give directions for students about how to do what we want them to do, right? Whatever we say or don't say causes students to think in deep or shallow ways, regardless of what our intent is. Okay, so I like to think about this as meta instruction, telling students what to look for, telling students what to do with the content. Bob? Your thought came to the surface. I could see it.
I wasn't going to share it.
That's fine. Well, then you don't have to.
I'm saving that one.
I should have asked one of the junior faculty. They might feel intimidated or something. Okay. So, you know, when we say read chapter 3, we need to give them more instructions, or else all they're going to do is flip pages. Okay. What I tell my students is, as you read chapter 3, I want you to identify everything in the chapter that you don't understand, everything that you wouldn't feel comfortable explaining to your colleagues. Then you email me that list. It doesn't have to, it's just, here are the concepts, here are the things. And anything that's on your list, I promise I will not call on you to explain. But anything that's not on your list is fair game. Randy, explain countercyclical monetary policy, because you didn't have it on the list. All right? And it's a win-win. I give them points. You turn it in, you get points. It's the easiest points you're going to learn in this class. But think about, you know, assuming that they take the assignment seriously, and sometimes they don't. But if they do, if they actually have to think about what do I understand and what don't I understand, that's huge. And it really is the easiest points they get. Okay. Then what I do, I mean, this is not part of the story here. I get these emails first thing in the morning. I sort and collate them and rank order them. And now I know what are the topics in the chapter that the students are having the most difficulty with. That's where I spend my time in class. So it leads to kind of a just-in-time teaching thing. Okay.
Fun little technical tip, since one of my hats is a Canvas admin. You can do a
Canvas admin? Okay.
person who
I wasn't criticizing.
the person who makes the go can do a discussion board and have students post like one question that they have in the meeting, and then students can give it a thumbs up, and you can have Canvas sort it by the number of likes that post gets, and say something like, I'm going to spend most of my time on the top 3 vote getting topics. Similar.
Yeah.
Cool. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Okay. It's an hour. We can stop. You can let me conclude, in other words. Or we can go longer. What we're doing now is segueing into more specific assignment type behaviors that will help students learn more, or we could decide to do that on another occasion. Okay. There are good ways to help your students read a chapter and learn from it, or listen to your lecture and get a lot out of it. Okay, and those are ways that most faculty probably don't know and don't do. Okay, so vote. Yeah, that's fine.
That's a strong vote right there.
Yeah.
He won and now he's leaving.
I really want it though.
Okay.
Well, now that you won.
He's gonna go memorize the other words. Yeah, I know how competitive he is. He's gonna call it.
Well, I want to know.
Okay.
Because I'm different.
Okay.
So one of the things that I tell my students is you need to create a process for how to plan, how to monitor, and how to evaluate the learning that you're doing. If you create a plan for that, and it can be a trivial. I mean, I don't say it can be a trivial plan, but if they start thinking about the goal is not just to get to the last page, the goal is for me to learn and assess my learning as I go along. Am I comfortable? Do I feel like I know it? Can I summarize what I've written? I mean, that's one of the things that you can do. Okay, students will learn a lot more than they will if you just say read the chapter. Okay, this is metacognition in a nutshell. Here is think about what you're think about what you're learning, assess your learning, and repeat. Okay, all right. Let me jump through the next few slides. Strategies for deep processing. This is guidance that you can give your students about how to learn with content, okay? Let me just give you one. So this says, how does this concept, there's elaboration, distinctiveness, personal, okay? There's an assignment that I give that I have on a slide here somewhere. It's not a slide. Nope, not that one. Not that one. Try this one. Okay. First assignment in my my Econ 202 class. Gosh, it's really hard to read. I wonder if we can blow that up. Yes, we can. Okay. Write me a 3-paragraph essay. Okay. Doesn't have to be, it's not a paper per se, but here's what I want you to think about. And I tell them, these are not trivial questions. I really want to know. I really want you to have answers. Why are you taking this course? If you're not completely sure what microeconomics covers, read chapter 1, okay? Do you have a burning desire to be an econ major? Ha, that makes them laugh. If so, how does this course fit into the econ major? Okay, is the course required for some other discipline that you want to major in, like business administration? If so, why do you think it's required and how does it fit into that major? Okay, are you taking it for gen ed credit? If so, what gen ed goal does it satisfy and why does it fit there? Are you taking this course simply to fill elective credit? If so, why did you choose the course? okay? These are questions where I think the prompt is more important than the answer. You know, I don't grade their answers. I grade, did they complete it or not? But a lot of students don't know why they're in the classes that they're in. They're in because they were told to take them or something like that. And I think this puts them on the right path the first day. This is actually, I assigned this it's due on Friday, first week. So, all right, let's.
Do some decide, hey, you know what, I think I want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, okay, so if you can wait 1 minute, I'll give you the takeaway.
No.
If you can't,
No.
okay. All right. Okay. How to take good class notes. This is not the takeaway. Reading, effective group study. There's an idea. Okay. Motivation is one of the other big takeaways. I teach a lot of adult students, especially in my online courses. Why do adult students on average get higher grades in my classes? The answer is they have a much better idea of what they're there for and why they want to learn the stuff. Motivation matters. I have a little quote there that I will not show. Okay, major findings. These are the ones that we talked about. And whoopsie, sorry. So here's the takeaway, okay? When you plan your courses, I'm still planning mine for this semester. Heck, it's days away. Don't just think about the content. Don't just think about, I'm gonna roll out what I did last year, okay? Instead, think about how you might incorporate some of these ideas in a small way. They're little things that you can do. You don't have to revamp your entire course. That would, it would be hard to do anyway, okay? But just think about what can I do differently based on learning science in a way that can help my students learn, okay? Now you can leave. We're not done. Hey, we're not done.
I've got to go talk to you.
No, you don't. Okay, wait. In closing. Oh, sorry. In closing. Many of you are probably thinking this is great, but I don't have the time to do research in this field, much less reorganize my courses. I hear you. I feel the same way, but let me leave you with another question. If you believe what I've told you today, if you believe the findings of learning science, how can you not take that and put it into your teaching, especially you junior faculty? It's an investment in the future of your students, okay? You know, I think that's really important.
Especially the more veteran instructors.
Yes. So I have a whole bunch of references that you might find useful. And then finally, I have to give special thanks to Dr. Norman Baer, Director of the Open Learning Initiative at Carnegie Mellon. He's a personal friend, and he gave me a lot of help with this. And also Dr. Ross Strader, who was at Carnegie Mellon, went to Stanford, and is now Director of Learning Engineering. What a cool title at Lumen Learning. So thank you guys for coming.
Thank you.
And we'll do more.
So the teaching center, the libraries, Office of Disability Services, and the Writing Center, and anybody else who wants to join, we're offering an opportunity, called Faculty Fridays.